Okay, welcome to the third day of Junior Global Poisson Workshop. And our first speaker for today is Prafula Kushik, who will talk about two notions of a job over stack.
Yeah, so thanks. I thank the speakers for this opportunity, and also the audience who came here this early morning. For them, some of them. Yeah, so this is joint work with my advisor, Sagar Chatterjee. This is published in Bulletin The Science of Mathematics recently. So, yes, so for every talk, we need to assume something. So I'm assuming familiarity with category theory, some terms in category theory, and some terms in differential geometry. Nothing more than that. If anything else needed, we will fix in the next session. So the outline is I'll discuss about Lie groupoids and the principal stacks, and some correspondence between Lie groupoids and the principal stacks. Then, as a next step, a motion between Lie groupoids and differential stacks. So, a Lie groupoid is it's a groupoid. You can guess by the terminology. It's a groupoid where this base space G0 and G1 are smooth manifolds, and there is some condition on the structure maps. What are the structure maps? The source target, this multiplication, this is inverse map, and this identity map. We need source target maps to be submersions. They are already surjective, as by the definition of category. For every object here, you can think of an arrow, identity arrow. So this is already surjective, both source and target. So extra thing we want is we want them to be submersions, so that this product makes sense. This G1 plus G1 over G0, each product over this maps source and target. So this is a smooth manifold, and this multiplication map I want it to be smooth, and so the inverse and the identity map. Identity is in the sense for each object you associate the identity arrow. Now some examples are for any manifold you can consider the Lie groupoid MM, where you declare both the source and target, both the object and morphism set to be M, and all maps are identity maps. So you can think of manifold as a Lie groupoid, and then in Lie group you can also think of the Lie groupoid, where you take the groupoid over the singleton set star and denoting by star. And it satisfies the condition mentioned before. And one more example is you take a Lie groupoid and an action of Lie groupoid on the manifold M, and you can consider the product M cross G to M. Here you declare source map to be M comma G goes to M, and M comma G, the target map, goes to M dot G, the action. So these are some examples of Lie groupoids. And similar to the case of Lie group, we have the notion of action of a Lie groupoid on a manifold and the principal G bundle for a Lie groupoid. You might have seen this notion for notion of a Lie group action on a manifold. You might have already seen principal G bundle for a Lie group. You have already seen. So this is generalization of that. So I'll define the notion of action of a Lie groupoid on a manifold. I start with the Lie groupoid G and a manifold P. A right action. Suppose we're in the setup of Lie group, it's simply going by P cross G to P, and you would want this to satisfy some condition P dot 1 is equal to P, and all this. But here there is no identity is not unique for each object A in G0. We have an identity. So so we ask another map AG from P to G0 to be the this is involved in the description of the right action. So we have two maps instead of one map. We have map from P cross G1 cross G1 to P and P to G0. Right action is given. There are two maps from G1 to G0. One is source, one is target. Here we are taking target for the right action. You want to take left action, you take the source map. You simply write G1 cross P to P. Satisfying some condition. First condition is P dot 1 is equal to P for all P. This is what you can already guess. And what is one here? One is identity arrow for the object AGP is an element in G0. You take the identity arrow, and P dot 1 is equal to P. Here dot is the mu map, mu of P comma gamma, I denote by P dot gamma. And forget about second condition. Third condition is you might have already seen this before. P dot gamma, P dot G comma G prime is P dot G prime. And why do you need second condition? Suppose you take P gamma prime in this product. The right side makes sense because gamma and gamma prime belongs to this. Source of gamma is equal to target of gamma prime. So right side makes sense. And this also makes sense. P dot gamma dot compose gamma prime also makes sense because by this description, AG of P is equal to target of gamma compose gamma prime. This makes sense, but for the left hand side to make sense, you need AG of this to be same thing as target of gamma prime, which is not clear why it is the case for any element here. But by definition, target of gamma prime is equal to source of gamma. Because we are not sure whether it happens or not, we impose that condition. The second condition is to make sure third condition makes sense. Yeah, so this is the notion of action of Lie group out of the manifold. And similarly, we have for a Lie group out G in the manifold M, we have the notion of principal G bundle over the manifold. This is also similar to the case of principal G bundle for a Lie group. For a Lie group, principal G bundle consists of a manifold first. That's what we have here. And then after the Lie group on the manifold, here we have a Lie group out action on the manifold given by P to G0 and mu. And we have another map from P to M in case of Lie group principal bundle. Here also we have the same thing. We want it to be subject to submersion, just like in the case of Lie group. And the first condition, these three are the data, these are the conditions. First condition is you want the map pi to be G invariant. It is an action of G, Lie group action on this manifold P. And you have this map pi of P dot gamma is equal to pi of P for every P gamma in this set. Now next condition is, I could have written this in a different way. It only says the action of G on P is free and transfer on the fibers. So the map P comma gamma goes to P comma P dot gamma. This is the right action, so gamma comes on the right side. It's a diffeomorphism. This is equivalent to saying, you might have seen this in the setup of Lie groups, P cross G to P comma P cross P. Here also it's the same thing. This only says the action is free and transitive. And now, given a manifold M, I'm considering this category BGM. This denotes the category whose objects are principal G bundles over the manifold M, and whose morphisms are principal G bundles, morphism principal G bundles over the manifold M. This notation is not, I mean, it's actually wrong in this sense. I need to specify that morphism principal bundles so that on the base map is identity map. Even on the same manifold, there can be two principal bundles with different map from M to M. But here I want the map morphisms to be such that on the base M to M, it's identity map. That's what I mean in the remaining talk also. So you might remember that for a principal bundle on the manifold M, if I take two principal bundles and the morphism between them, it's an isomorphism. If I know the map from M to M is identity map, so the same case holds here also. A morphism between the principal G bundles for a Lie group out G, it's also an isomorphism. So any morphism in this category is an isomorphism. That's why it's a groupoid. BGM is a groupoid for every manifold M. So we define now we define the pseudo functor from the category of manifold to category of groupoids. We take a manifold and assign the category of principal G bundles over that manifold that I'm denoting by BGM as before. And you take a morphism of objects in the manifold, which is a smooth map, and you associate the functor BGM prime to BG. This is the typo BGM. You take a principal G bundle over the manifold M prime, and you simply pull back the action of G on the P prime, the manifold P prime. induce an action of G on the pullback as well. So this gives a functor. Then it's a pseudo functor in the sense wherever you expect equality, you don't get the equality there. You only get an isomorphism with some extra conditions, some compatibility conditions. That's what I'm calling a pseudo functor. And it turns out that it's locally determined. What does it mean for a pseudo functor to be locally determined? Suppose I take an object M here. Suppose I take a manifold and I take a open cover U alpha to M. Then suppose I'm given a principal G bundle over the manifold U alpha for each alpha, and some compatibility condition is mentioned on the intersection, double intersection, and some more compatibility and the cocycle condition is mentioned on the triple intersection. Then I know that I can glue these principal bundles over the manifold U alpha to get a principal bundle over the manifold M. This is what happens in the case of principal G bundle for a Lie group G also. You take an open cover, you put some conditions on the double intersection and the cocycle conditions on the triple intersection. You can glue all these principal bundles to get a principal bundle on the bigger manifold M. So that's what happens here. That I call it to be locally determined. And any pseudo functor which is locally determined, I call it. It's called as a stack over the site. So this is how I want you to remember the setup of stack. This is any other pseudo functor, not necessarily BG, but we call BG to be the stack of principal G bundles. So now, let me quickly recall the notion of stack over a arbitrary site. You take a category C and a Grothin topology J. What is this? This is the description. This is the data for each object U. You declare some collection whose target is U to be a covering, and you want this to satisfy some condition. Then you call the collection to be Grothin topology. Then for an object U and I cover U alpha to U, I'm denoting by U alpha beta the fiber product of the map U alpha to U, U beta to U. You take the fiber product. This exists because of the definition of Grothin topology. You denote that by U alpha beta, and you take three maps, through three morphisms, U alpha to U, U beta, and U gamma to U. Then you take the triple fiber product. This is similar to the case of usual fiber product. You take U alpha beta, and then you do with U gamma to U. Then you get the triple fiber product. I denote that by U alpha beta gamma. In the case of manifold, this is simply U alpha intersection U beta intersection U gamma. Here it is slightly different, that you can guess. Now with this notation, I define some category. Given a pseudo functor, I define the category as the following: D of descent category. This is called descent category. An object here is for each object for each index alpha in gamma. This is the index I'm fixing for the cover. For each index alpha, you have an object S alpha. This is D of U alpha. Actually, this is a typo. U alpha is an object of C. You take the so this gives a category. So you take some objects S alpha. Then for two indices alpha and beta, the first condition gives two objects S beta in D of U beta and S gamma S alpha in D of U alpha. And I want these two objects to satisfy some condition, but they are in different category. So I cannot make sense of the equality or isomorphism. So I have to go down to the category of D U alpha beta. There is a map from U alpha beta to U alpha and to U beta. So because this is the contravariant functor, the morphism U alpha beta to U induce a map of categories from DU to DU alpha beta. So this is the image of S alpha under that map. This is the image of S beta under the map from D of U beta to DU alpha beta. So I want an isomorphism between these two, and I want this isomorphism to satisfy some condition. For the triple index, for each index I have an object. For double index I have an isomorphism. For triple index, I have three morphisms in D alpha beta, D beta gamma, and D gamma alpha. So I want them to satisfy some condition. It's cosine condition that you can that I'll mention later. Now, and similarly, you can define the morphism set. Suppose I take two objects, I can declare the morphism to be a morphism theta alpha from S alpha to T gamma T alpha. So it's been some compatibility condition. Now, given an object U and a cover, there is a functor from DU to D, the descent category. You take an object here and you restrict it, you get the isomorphisms. That's what it means, the restriction. So suppose this functor is an equivalence of category for every object U and every cover U alpha to U, then I call it to be a stack. That's what happened in the case of principal G bundles. It's locally determined. That means this functor du to d, the descent category, is an equivalence of categories. That's what we call a stack. Now, this is a more general notion, a stack over a different site. Now we restrict our attention to the stack over the category of manifolds. Here the Grothendieck topology is given by, for a manifold M, a cover is given by an open cover. That's what the topology here, you call it open cover topology. So we are interested in the stacks D from man to groupoid, which are representable by Lie groupoids. What does it mean? It means this pseudo functor D is isomorphic to the functor of the form BG. Then I call it to be differentiable stack. So there is another alternative description of differentiable stack. That if there is an atlas, a morphism of stacks from manifold to the stack D, and satisfying some condition, you call it an atlas. What is the description? What do I mean by manifold X as a stack? I have mentioned before that for every manifold X, you can associate the Lie groupoid XX, and then you take the BG for that. That gives a stack. And this is what I mean by X. I mean the stack associated to the Lie groupoid XX. And satisfying some condition, the fiber product should be representable by a manifold, and the projection map should be subject to submersion. Then I call this morphism stacks to be an atlas for the stack D. Then the characterization for differentiable stacks is a stack is differentiable if and only if there exists an atlas for the stack D. Differentiable in the sense there exists a Lie groupoid, and atlas in the sense of the existence of a manifold and a morphism of stacks satisfying some condition. Now, so for every differentiable stack, I can associate a Lie groupoid, and for every Lie groupoid, I can associate a differentiable stack. Now the next question is, now some couple of questions. Suppose I take a morphism of Lie groupoids, and for G, I have the stack BG, and for H, I have the stack BH. Then I want to know, suppose I take a morphism in this level from a Lie groupoid G to Lie groupoid H. What can I say about the morphism BG to BH? Does it have an extra property? If I have some extra property on the at this level, at the level of Lie groupoids. So suppose I ask the condition that this Lie groupoid morphism is a Lie groupoid extension, which means on the base space, its identity map, base of both categories is M. Base space identity map, and on the top space, it's a subject to submersion or fiberation. Then what can I say about the morphism of stacks BG to BH? That is one question. Another question is, suppose I take a morphism of differentiable stacks D to C. Do I know, as mentioned before, for every differentiable stack, I have a Lie groupoid. For this stack C, I have a Lie groupoid. Can I pull back the map at the level of stacks to the level of Lie groupoids? That is one question. Another question is, suppose I put some extra condition on the on this morphism stacks D to C. Can I expect a morphism Lie groupoids? And if this is a Zer-Bohr stack, I'll mention what is it. If this is Zer-Bohr stack, can I get a leaf group pod extension? That's what the question is. So this is what I'll be doing in the next session. So why do I want to do all this? This leaf group pod extension is that people use the term Gerbour stack to describe leaf group pod extension, but they use the same term to denote the same thing in the setup of stacks. So it's not clear whether it is an abuse of terminology or there is actually a correspondence between these two. And this paper is a result of that question, whether every Gerbour stack associate to a leaf group extension, and for every leaf group extension, can I get the corresponding of stacks? Does it have to be a Gerbour stack? So that is what is answered in the paper. And
Prafula, 5-minute warning.
yes, sure. Yes. So given a leaf group pod extension, there is a way to associate a morphism of stacks. You use the notion of bibundles and the composition for every morphism leaf group pods. You can associate a bibundle, and then there is a notion of composition of bibundles. So just okay, you can consider like this. Suppose you take a morphism of leaf groups G2H. Then you can associate. Then you take a principal G bundle. Then you can associate a principal H bundle. By G and H, I mean leaf groups here. So similarly, the same idea, imitating the same idea, it gives a morphism stacks BG2BH given a leaf group morphism. Then suppose I assume this is a leaf group extension. This is what in some paper they are called Gerbour stack. Suppose I take a leaf group extension. Can I assure that this map, this of stacks, is a Gerbour stack? That is one question. Next is suppose I take a Gerbour stack. Do I get a morphism of leaf group pods, which is a leaf group extension? So first condition, first way it is as we have guessed before. Any morphism leaf group pods extension gives a Gerbour stack, but the other way it's not true. Any Gerbour stack, it's not clear why it should give a leaf group extension. So we have to put an extra condition that a morphism stack is Gerbour stack if this map and the diagonal map is a epimorphism of stacks. So we need an extra condition on the diagonal morphism. Then we have proved that there exists a leaf group extension that associates to this morphism of stacks. So this is what you'll be seeing in the next session, and I'll also talk about monotype equivalence. This assignment is not a given a definable stack. It's not true that there is only one leaf group pod associated. So that this is an isomorphism. There can be two leaf group pods, but those two leaf group pods are related by what is called monotype equivalence. That also I mentioned before. And similarly, there is a notion of monotype equivalence of leaf group pod extensions. And it turns out two leaf group pod extensions which are monotype equivalent induce isomorphic morphisms here. So I have two morphisms and there is a commutative diagram. That's what I mean to say. Two morphisms are there is an isomorphism between them. So this is what you'll be seeing in the next session. And these are the references. So in this paper, non-abelian differentiable Zerbs, these authors use the terminology Gerbour stack to denote leaf group pod extension. But in this paper, differentiable stacks in Zerbs and some other papers, they use the term Gerbour stack to denote a morphism of stacks satisfying some condition. So these two papers use same terminology for different things, and our paper, this on two notions of Gerbour stack, this gives a description of the equivalence between them under certain mild conditions. And this is the reference I suggest if somebody wants to read about differentiable stacks or the full stacks by Eugene Lerman. This is what I said. Yeah, so that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prafula, for a wonderful talk. Let's all give a round of applause, including emojis. Let's all use our emoji applause. Thank you.